I'm going to get started. My name is Abhijat Kanade. I'm a program manager on the Windows and Windows Phone Dev Center teams. And I'm here today to save you a lot of pain and time as you move from your app development process to app submission. Being on the Windows Phone Dev Center team for the last 3 years has brought me really close with developers' experience with Dev Center. So I'm really excited to be here presenting something that you all will find extremely useful. I'm here for 3 things mainly today. 1, to talk about new features that we are exposing in both the dev centers over the coming weeks. 2, to help you quickly submit the apps that you've developed for our platform. And 3, to provide clarity on a number of things we typically see developer confusion on, especially when we are releasing a new operating system version. I also want to point out that the talk is a bit heavy on the Windows Phone side, given that we launched the Windows Phone 8.1 SDK. And we talked about Windows 8.1 and Dev Center just at last build, but it's been 2 years since we talked about Windows Phone. But there are a lot of common features that we'll go through today. So I wanted to point out that we are seeing tremendous momentum on the platform. We have now over 400,000 developers across the Windows and Windows Phone dev centers. And they have submitted a combined total of more than 415,000 apps. And we really appreciate the work that you guys have done and the feedback that you have been providing through various forums, through Dev Center forums, through user voice. Unlike the past, where we waited for the next major operating system release to bring new functionality to Dev Center, over the last year, we have been delivering features more often, almost on a monthly cadence, based on the feedback that you guys have given. So please keep on giving that feedback to us. It's very useful for us as we prioritize what to focus on next. So I want to show you a few things that we've delivered in Windows Phone Dev Center over the past year based on your feedback. The first one was a #1 requested feature on user voice. It was, please allow us to cancel a submission. I just screwed something up. I hit submit, and I was like, oops. So we delivered this, and this has become one of the most widely used features now on our Dev Center. Almost 10% of all submissions end up canceling after being submitted. So great. The other one we got was, hey, please make my beta apps faster. So we've reduced the ingestion time from a few hours to a few minutes now. And we have removed the concept of an expiration on beta apps. We delivered the Windows Phone Dev Center app for Windows Phone, so you can check on your apps how they're doing without having to log on to the website. And a bunch of other things, including recent improvements to reporting. Now you can get more data for crash dumps for troubleshooting. You can see more information about payouts. And you also get more information about app downloads. You get demographic information, as well as which MO and OEM a particular report data came from. Similarly, on the Windows Dev Center, since last year's release, we have delivered a few more features. You now can unpublish apps. Let's say you realize you have a bug, and you want to stop new users from acquiring your app. You can now unpublish, fix your bug, and resubmit. We also now have the ability for you to set the date and time for publishing your app to store so that you don't have to be awake in the middle of the night just to hit the publish button. And finally, we've improved our certification processes and our policy. So it's much clearer now, and we've seen a much improved pass rate as a result of this. And one thing you'll notice is that the improvements we've made on the Windows Phone and Windows side are a bit different, right? I mean, you have beta apps on Windows Phone. You have the ability to set the publish time on Windows Dev Center. We are going to make sure as we move forward as one Dev Center team that you will see the same innovation happening on both the Dev Centers. This was the past. I'm talking about the future now. So let's briefly talk about the vision that Mazhar Mohammed told you about on his April 2nd talk. We really want to have one store for our consumers, irrespective of the device they are using, whether it's a PC, tablet, or a phone. On the developer side, we now have the one converged development platform but we also aspire to have a one dev center experience for you in a few months. Not today, but that's really where we want to go. And let's see what we have delivered along this vision right now. So we now have a connected catalog. You saw a lot of news about universal apps at this conference, which enables consumers to buy their app on one store and then acquire it for free on the other store for use on any of their devices. Even the user experience as they browse the stores is consistent now. So they see the same top free, top paid lists, and also see the universal app identifier in the store. On the development platform side, now there is a highly converged set of APIs and application model. So you can write an app in your language of choice using a high-level UI framework like XAML or HTML5, or even code directly in C++ and DirectX, and submit the apps to both the stores. And on the Dev Center, we launched one registration, a shared registration process late last year, where now if you are a developer on one of the dev centers, you don't have to pay again to sign up for the other dev center. If you're a brand new developer, you get set up on both dev centers as you go through this new registration process. And we are making some further improvements to this over the next couple of weeks. We are going to get rid of the requirement to enter a credit card information. And this is for a scenario is if you're an existing Windows Phone developer who just wants to get bootstrapped into the Windows Dev Center, you still have to give the credit card even though you don't have to pay again. So we're getting rid of that. We are also making it possible for you to sign up and register using PayPal. Although we continue to have two different dev centers for now, we are creating one landing page, and I'll show you that on the next slide. That's more of a starting point for any developer who wants to develop Windows Store or Windows Phone Store apps. The buy once, get everywhere experience that consumers see is made possible through the Universal Apps and IAPs feature that we are launching for you guys, which allows you to link your apps. So I'll go through the details of that as well. And finally, we are making the price tiers across the stores consistent. And you'll see this happening when you see the 99-cent and $1.29 price tiers showing up for Windows Dev Center, just like Windows Phone. So this is what the landing page looks like. If you go to dev.windows.com today, you will get access to all the documentation, code samples, and even links to events that are happening for universal app development. If you go to the top left, you can then click on that navigation and go into either the Windows Store Dev Center experience or the Windows Phone Dev Center, depending on where you want to submit the app. So if you had to remember just one URL, it would be dev.windows.com. So let's talk about universal apps. Now, before I begin, I want to clarify that this is different from the universal app that you're seeing in Visual Studio, right? In Visual Studio, universal app is about developing a common app and having shared code that you can reuse across your stores or across your apps. What I'm talking about here is the linking of your Windows and Windows Phone apps, right? So now you can link it, and the moment you link this, that's what makes the buy once, get everywhere experience possible for your consumers. The same concept even applies to in-app products that are linked to the app, as long as they use the same identifier on both the stores and are of type durable. Now, these three things that I talked about is going to be possible even if you don't update your apps to 8.1. Your existing apps can be linked without you having to use the new SDK. However, if you do decide to do an 8.1 package for an app and you have used this app linking feature, you get two additional benefits. The first one, you can roam your application data across all of these devices. So a scenario is you are a game developer, you create a game. I started playing it on my tablet. I had to rush to work on the train, so I left it off. I got on the train, picked up my phone. If you have the application data roaming feature enabled, then I can pick off where I left off, basically. The other feature is if you're using 8.1 packages, you can share the notification channel if your app is push-enabled. So your service can talk to one endpoint, the Windows networking service, and push notifications that get delivered to PCs, tablets, and phones. So in order to understand how you do the linking, I want to talk briefly about app name reservation. Now, existing Windows Dev Center users or developers are already, you know about this thing. Since day one, you've had to reserve an app name as the first step for app submission. And once you reserve the name, then you had to upload packages that use that name. We are introducing the same thing on the Windows Phone side now. So let's do a quick demo of what this looks like. All right. So I'm going to show you side by side how you go about reserving a name, in the on the Windows Dev Center side, and on the Windows Phone Dev Center. So I'm already logged in here. I'm going to go to the dashboard on the Windows side, and do the same here. And the first thing I do is I say I'm going to submit an app. And the first step says pick an app name for your application. So I'm going to create a new one and call it build existing, or let's say build Windows, and reserve it. Hopefully nobody's taken that name, because if somebody did, I wouldn't be able to use it. But now you see that, oh, there was a typo there. That's fine. This name has been reserved for me through Windows Dev Center. Now I come to Windows Phone, and I can do the same thing here. I go into submitting an app. The first step requires me to pick a name for my app. But you'll notice as I start typing that the name that I just registered on Windows Dev Center is showing up on Windows Phone as well. Why is this happening? Because the reservation is across the two stores, across the two dev centers. So if I was linking the apps, I would just pick the name that already exists and click on Associate App. That's all you have to do to link your apps. If I was not, let's say I was doing a new one, I'm just going to call it Build Windows Phone. I'm going to reserve this name. All right, and that reserved it for me. Now there's a third way to reserve a name for your app, through Visual Studio itself. So I create a project. I'm going to start with the universal project, because I'm going to show you a demo later on. But once I create this project, you'll see that this universal app project now has, or solution, has 3 projects underneath. There's a shared one where the shared code can live, and you have the Windows and Windows Phone projects. So for now, I'm going to reserve a name through Visual Studio on the Windows Dev Center side. I'm going to right-click on that app, click on Store, and say Associate App with Store. And then I go through this beautiful wizard. Never have to go to Dev Center if you wanted to do it this way. And before I go any further, you'll see the same name that I had reserved on the Windows side is appearing here too, because it's talking to the same infrastructure behind the scenes. So this time I'm going to say this is Build Visual Studio, because I reserved the name from VS. And that's it. Okay? So pretty straightforward. So we'll go back to the next name. So we just saw how to reserve a name, but you need to be aware of a few other rules related to app name reservation. The first one is every app is required to have a primary name, a primary name moving forward. And once a name has been reserved, it cannot be used by any other developer, even you, for any other app. You have the ability to reserve multiple names for the same app, and this is useful typically if your localized app, you use localized titles. And as we just saw, it doesn't matter where you reserve the name from, whether from one dev center, the other, or Visual Studio. It is reserved for you across the 2 stores. And finally, one request. As you're reserving a name, please do not reserve a name that you don't have rights to use. Because if we get an IP infringement case from somebody, we will have to remove your app if you don't have rights to use that name. And finally, if you reserve a name but you do not use it for 12 months, you have not submitted an app to either of the stores, then we will reclaim it so that some other developer can use that name. Now, all the rules that you just saw apply to both Windows and Windows Phone. But for Windows Phone, we have a few additional rules. Now, you must be, how many of you are Windows Phone developers here? Awesome. And how many Windows Store? Great, OK. So you're already universal app developers. Awesome. So on Windows Phone, you must have a question now. Hey, what about my existing apps? Do I have to rush now and reserve the name, or can I continue to update it? So for existing apps, we will allow you to continue using your names. You don't have to reserve a name. However, if you do reserve a name, you can either use an existing name or this reserved name as you move forward. So to give you an example, if we have 15 Flashlight apps, it's not like only one of them continues as Flashlight as we move forward. And another important point, which doesn't apply to Windows because they don't have beta apps, but because your name can only be used for one app, please make sure that you're not using the real name for your beta app, because if you did, that's it. You can't use it for the real app. Once you associate a name with a given application, you cannot change it, and you cannot remove it and say, I want to use it on some other app. Same thing with the universal app linking. Be very, very careful when you're linking two apps, because once two apps are linked, if you realize later that you linked the wrong apps, there's nothing we can unfortunately do about it. So with that, I'll go into the demo for app submission, and we'll continue where I left off earlier with the universal app project. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start a submission on both the dev centers. Again, side by side, so you can quickly see what's happening. I'm going to submit an app. As you can see, the Visual Studio app name that I created is already available for me here. So I'm just going to say I'm going to complete this submission. On the Windows Phone side, because I have not yet associated the name with an app, I'm going to do that here. So I'm going to start a new app submission and pick the build Visual Studio name here and say associate the app. All right. I'll go back to Visual Studio now, and I'm going to build out these packages. Very simple again. I mean, this is a simple package, so I'm not going to add any code right now, but I'm going to right-click, store, and then say create an app package for me. And again, it takes you through this beautiful wizard where you get to choose what's the name of the app. It's Build Visual Studio, and whether you want to have Visual Studio do automatic versioning, et cetera. And it's going to create an app package for me in the background. Perfect. So it says the package creation is complete. Now you'll notice there is a link at the bottom. It says launch the Windows App Certification Kit. Now, this is a very powerful tool that you have. If you run this toolkit offline on your application, it's going to run a majority of the certification steps that we do when you upload the package. So you can catch errors, like some of the submission errors, even without having to submit the app to Dev Center. So I highly recommend running this toolkit before you come and submit your app to store. I'm going to do exactly the same thing for my Windows Phone app now. Right-click, store, create app package, go through the wizard, and since I had associated the Build Visual Studio title with an app on Windows Phone Store, I see that title here as well. I'm going to say use it, and same thing, create the app package. And this time I'll show you what happens if you click on the Launch WAC Toolkit. So it's going to launch this Windows App Certification Kit, and it gives me a few examples. What are the checks I want to run on this app? So I'll start running this, and while this is happening in the background, I'll go back to my Windows submission process and fill out the rest of the submission. So once you've reserved the name, the next thing you have to decide is, are you going to make this app a paid app or a free app? Which markets you want to publish this app to? I'm going to set category as education for now, and that's it. Hit save. I also get to decide whether I want to create an in-app product. I'm going to just skip over all these steps for now. Say that this app is suitable for anyone above the age of 3. I'm not using any crypto, and yes, I'm not using. So, great. And I'm at the stage where I'm ready to upload the package. But in the meantime, you'll notice that my WAC toolkit finished its analysis, and what do you see? I have a failure. So I'm like, OK, what did I miss? And I'm going to click on the results quickly. And I see everything passed, but I forgot to replace the placeholder images in my package. So I'm going to go and quickly take care of that. Open the project in Explorer, go to Assets, and copy these over. And now I'm going to rebuild this thing. And I'm going to launch the same toolkit, and again, have it run in the background as we finish off our Windows submission. So now that I'm ready to upload the package, I click on Packages. I open my directory here for my Windows project, go to App Packages, and this Apex file, I'm just going to call it Build Visual Studio. And submit it here. Yeah. So pretty simple. All right. And as you can see, it passed all the checks. I'm going to save this information. And then I get to fill out the store listing information, the metadata for this app. I'm going to call it demo, add a screenshot. Give it a name, fill out some copyright information here quickly, and enter my support email address. That's it. And that's it. And if you have a service where your app needs to log on, typically you want to give them a demo account to the testers so they can try it out. But since I don't have any, I'm just going to say none. And that's it. You're done. You're ready to submit your app on the Windows Dev Center side. You can review all the things you did before you hit submit. Now let's go back to our WAC toolkit. Now this time I passed all the checks because I took care of that one error for images. So now I'm ready to do the same app upload on the Windows Phone Dev Center side. So I'm going to go back to my folder here, App Packages. I'm going to name this Build Visual Studio again. And this time, let's finish off the Windows Phone Dev Center process. So again, I'm going to select a category for this app. I'm going to keep it a free app. Close this here, and then get to the next step for uploading my package. So even though the UI is a bit different, the steps are pretty much the same. You pick a name, you fill out some listing, how you want to distribute this app, and finally you get to upload your package. So pretty straightforward. Created a universal app in Visual Studio, built out these two packages by associating it with the same name, ran WAC, and finally I uploaded these packages to both the Dev Center for submitting to store. All right, so let's get back to the rest of the presentation. Now, everything we saw right now was applicable to both the dev centers, right? We saw one registration, I talked about same price tier, one landing page, universal apps, submission. But for Windows Phone, we have, I want to share additional information. The first thing, people with existing, how many of you already have apps in the store on the Windows Phone side? Great. So one question we typically get whenever we have a new OS release is, how do I update my app? Can I update my app so that it still goes to my existing users and to the new users? So you can have one app with one application ID, and it can have multiple packages associated with it. Now, if you do nothing, absolutely nothing today, all of our existing apps will be made available to Windows Phone 8.1 devices by default. You don't have to do anything just to make it appear on these devices. However, if you want to use any of the new features being exposed through the 8.1 SDK, then you have the ability to update your app and add a new package. Do not replace your existing package. Add a new package for 8.1. And if you do that, any Windows Phone device, 8 device that is upgraded to 8.1, because all Windows Phone 8 devices are going to get this update, will get the new 8.1 package as an update automatically. Even if you have multiple packages associated with your application, you still have the ability to update each one independently. So taking a scenario here, you have an app with an 8.0 and 8.1 package, and then you realized your 8.0 package has a bug in it. It doesn't mean you have to update both of these. You can come in, do an update, just replace your 8.0 package, and submit. So your 8.1 users are unaffected by this update, but all your 8 users will now get an update for their app. And a few other package targeting rules. This is also a typical area of confusion. We have simplified how we do targeting now. And I'll explain to you what I mean by platform version always wins. So as we saw on the previous slide, if you don't do anything to your app is made available to 8.1 devices as well. However, if you did add an 8.1 package, at that point, we say, OK, we're not going to do this automatic thing anymore because you intentionally added a package for a given platform version. So from that point onwards, only that package goes to users who are using this OS version. So one of the things you have to make sure you're doing if you do this multiple package thing is that your higher platform version package must be a superset of your lower platform version in terms of the resolutions and the languages that you support. I'll take an example here. If your 8.0 app is localized in English and German, right? So and that's all you have, your Windows Phone 8 and 8.1 users are going to get the same package. So if I have a Windows Phone 8.1 device with German set as the language, I will get that package. Now you come and you update the app and you add an 8.1 package to it, but you forgot to localize it in German. This 8.1 user with German on his phone is going to get an update to this package, and suddenly his app is going to go English. So, but this is clearer to explain to developers. In the past, we tried to be smart about this and still continue to give the previous package to this 8.1 user, but then developers said, hey, why is my older package still going? And then we had to go back and explain exactly why. Now it's very clear for you. Because you forgot to localize the app in German, that's why the German guy got the English package. So please be very careful. And take a few examples. When we launched Windows Phone 7, and in the 7.5 days, if you had a 7.1 package, that's the only package for your app. We targeted, the curly brackets show you the phones to which we target this app. So it would go to 7X phones, 8.0, and 8.1. A year and a half back, when we launched Windows Phone 8, we saw developers come in and update their app and add a new 8.0 package. So any apps in this state, now the targeting changes. The 7.1 package only goes to 7X phones, and the 8.0 goes to both 8.0 and 8.1 phones. Now with the launch of the 8.1 SDK, in a few weeks, we expect most developers to update their apps further and add the 8.1 package. The moment you do that, the targeting is very clear, obvious. I'll take another example. If you have an 8.0 app only in the store, that app is not available to 7.1 devices because we only do that OS version and higher, but it's available to 8.1. So if you update it and you add an 8.1 package, again, the targeting is very straightforward. I'll take another extreme example. Somebody who has not developed an app for our platform comes in, starts creating an app using the 8.1 SDK, and submits the app. Now, this app is not available to 7 or 8 phones. And then he realizes, man, there are millions of users who could be downloading my app, but what do? I started off with the 8.1 SDK. So we allow you to update your app and add a lower platform SDK package to the same app. So in this example, what he did was he added a 7.1 SDK app, and now this app basically is available to all Windows Phone users out there. With this, I'll go into the demo, my final demo, for how do you update an existing Windows Phone app, because most of you here seem to have apps already installed. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my projects directory here. And here's an existing app. I have demo existing app. And I have two projects underneath, one for 7.1 and 8.0. The first thing you have, thank you for pointing that out. The first thing you'll notice is, yeah, this is an existing app with the 7.1 and an 8.0 project. The first thing I do before anything else is make a copy of the 8.0 project, because we are going to upgrade that to 8.1, and that is a one-way step. So I made a copy. I'm going to name it as 8.1 app, and I'm going to open this project in Visual Studio. It's going to give me a few warnings. I'm going to go through it. And you'll notice that this app is still a Windows Phone Silverlight 8 app, because I just made a copy. I haven't done anything else. It's very simple to upgrade this into a Silverlight 8.1. All you do is right-click and say retarget to Windows Phone 8.1. And it's going to show you the same warning. Please make a copy of your project before you do this, because this is a one-way street. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Now, this upgrade path only makes sense if you plan to use the Silverlight 8.1 SDK, not if you're planning to use the Windows Runtime SDK, because that requires you to have a new app on the Windows Phone side. So now that I have created a copy of this, for Silverlight, there are a couple of manual steps that you need to do, unlike the Apex package where there was a wizard which did all the app title association for you. So I'll show you what you have to do. There are two XML packages, two manifest packages. First is the Apex one. I'm going to open that. And the other one is your existing WM app manifest. I'm going to open that as well. You go to Dev Center. And I'm going to start off with an app that I already had in store. So you see this build existing Windows Phone app. It has two packages. I'm going to say I want to update this app. And I have to fill out the app info. Now, the first thing, if you are doing an 8.1 package submission, you have to reserve a name, because all 8.1 packages require a name inside the package. So it's saying, please reserve a name for this app. I'm just going to call it build existing Windows Phone app. Reserve a name. Great. And then it created a bunch of properties for me. I'm also going to go and open my account summary page, because I have to paste a few properties from there as well. So the first one is the WM app manifest. I have to pick the name I just reserved and copy it into the app title here. That's the only change required for WM app manifest. If you have localized app titles, you'll have to do the same thing for those. The next thing I do is I also copy that name in my Apex manifest. The next thing I copy is the package identity name inside the identity element. And the publisher name. There's a CN is equal to GUID format here, which I copy. Now, I'm going to leave the version. I can change the version to anything I want. Let's just make it 1. Because I want to demonstrate something else. I'll call it 1.5.0.0. And then the last thing I do is I have to also change the publisher's display name out here. So I go to my account summary, pick up my display name, and change it here. That's it. So those are the additional manual steps you have to do if you are going to do a Silverlight 8.1 project. And now that I've done that, I'm going to build this. And go back to my app submission process. So I filled out the name. That's the only change I have to make on this page. I'm going to go back to my upload packages page, because I want to upload this 8.1 package now. Let's see whether it has been built. It's succeeded. Pick up the file from here. Upload the package. Now, another thing we've seen some developers get confused is, I just created a package, but why do I see all these existing packages in there? It's because we clone your app. We are really putting your app in an edit mode. It's not like you only see the things that you change. So in this state now, I'm going to add my new 8.1 Silverlight Zap. It's going to do the static validation checks that some of them are done by WAC. And that's it. Now you see there are 3 packages for your app. So very simple. Yep. All right. So that was my third demo, how to update an existing Windows Phone app. Now, there are a few other rules you need to be aware of when it comes to 8.1 packages. The first one is you must have finished your shared registration process before you come and do this submission. And the reason for this is because of the whole app name reservation that is required. You can't do that unless you've gone through shared registration. So if you are a developer who only has a Windows Dev Center account, signing up for Windows Phone is very simple. Just go to the Windows Phone Dev Center, log in, and it's a one-click accept the terms. If you're an existing Windows Phone developer who does not have a Windows Dev Center account linked, you go to the account summary page, and there's a link that says, finish your shared registration process from here. So it's a matter of a few clicks, again, once we remove the need to have a credit card. Once you've signed up, you have three options, three package types for 8.1. One is your Silverlight Zap. And then, of course, the Windows runtime apps. You can either do an Apex package or an Apex bundle. How many of you know about Apex bundle here? OK, great. So Windows developers will be aware of this feature. It was introduced recently with the introduction of Windows 8.1. But you can only have one Apex package for any app. So let's say you have a localized game, and you're supporting 5 languages, and your core binary is only 10 MB, but each localization adds 100 MB to your game. If you had an Apex, the size of the game would be 510 MB. With Apex bundles, you can separate out your resources into different packages. So you have one binary, the 10 MB core binary, but then you have 100 MB packages for each of your 5 languages. And if you use the bundle, then the client is smart enough to only download those parts of the bundle that applies to the phone. So if I have an English phone, I'll download the core binary, the phone, and I will get the resource package. And my app size is not 500 MB anymore. It's 110 MB. The max size, we are making some changes. For Zaps, it remains the same. It's still 1 GB. However, for Apex and Apex bundle, we are increasing the limit to 4 GB, specifically for the reason I just spoke about. You have to put all the resources in the same package. This is a very, very critical rule. If you have an app, and if you publish it with an 8.1 package, your app from that point must continue to have an 8.1 package. This is very, very important to understand. So let's say you have an existing app, and you're still not made up your mind whether you want to move to the 8.1 platform or not. Please don't submit it on the real app. Do a beta app with a different name. Make sure your Zap or Apex is looking good. And only once you're sure, then update your existing app. Because once you do that, you can't say, this is not working out for me. Let me delete my 8.1 Zaps. Because 8.1 users can't get the 8.0 package as an update once they've moved to 8.1. And the other rule is your subsequent updates must have the same 8.1 package type or a newer one in this direction. So let's say you started off with Silverlight 8.1. Your subsequent updates can have Silverlight, or you can move to Apex or Apex bundle. But let's say your app is in a state where the published app has an Apex on it. That means you already use the Windows runtime APIs. You can't say, I want to move back to the Silverlight platform for 8.1 only. You can continue to do that for your 7.0 and 8.0 packages. But for 8.1, in the future, you can only have an Apex, or you can move to the next state, which is Apex bundle. If you have Apex bundle, then you must always have an Apex bundle. So it's an extension of what the same rules on the Windows side. Once you move to Apex bundle, you can't go back. Unlike 7.0 and 8.0 packages, where the version number is manually entered in Dev Center, we will pick it up from the package. This was one of the feedback we got. Why are you making us enter it? It's already in the package. So for 8.1, we pick it up automatically. And we expect that the version number, like the one I showed you, 1.5.0.0, it must be higher when you come in to update your app. And if you have multiple packages for the same platform version, let's say you decide to split up your English and German Zaps. Typically, most people don't do it. It's only for game developers. If you have Silverlight Zaps, those are the only ones where we allow multiple packages for the same OS version, then they must have the same version number in that submission. So we saw a bunch of things today, but there's more. And if you attended Mazhar's session or Bernardo's session, you would have seen these. But there are 3 main things I wanted to let you know about. First of all, our average time it takes for certifying a submission is between 2 to 5 days, and we have drastically reduced this. We are bringing it down to a few hours for most of your submissions. And this system has been rolled out to 100% of the Windows Phone developers. It's not rolled out to Windows yet, but we are planning to do that over the coming months. Now, this does not mean that every submission will go through in a few hours. We have some metrics. We do analysis and decide the risk factor for any submission, and some of them we might still hold up for a manual review. And the other thing, as we speed up certification, you'll also start noticing that, and one thing you need to be aware of is just because your submission got through doesn't mean that you were certified, that you are OK, you complied with all the policies. We have a few other things, and we can go back and review your app. And if we see that there was a violation of a policy, we'll have a post-publish certification failure report for you. And this is what it looks like. If an app goes through, it's already published to store, we do analysis, and then we are like, OK, we want you to change something. We'll send out an email to you and say, guys, you have a certification failure report. Please go to Dev Center and take a look at the details. If you go to Dev Center, you can now download the certification failure report. And this particular one says that if you don't fix this issue in the next few days, we will unpublish your app. And you can see the failure reasons. The first one is your app is using location services, but you don't prompt your user saying that you're using location. The other one is you are not handling exceptions properly, so your app closes unexpectedly. So this is just an example of a post-published certification report. The second thing we're doing is we allow you to now reply to reviews from within Dev Center. So if your app, you see a 1-star rating there, and he says, my app keeps on crashing when I click on an icon. And you're like, OK, why is this crashing? Which icon is he talking about? You can click on respond and say, hey, Justin, I hear that you're having a problem. Can you please tell me more, what icon you're talking about, what phone you're using? And when you hit send, the user gets an email on his Microsoft account with all those details. And the user has two options. One is, if he believes that your answer satisfied him, he can go and change his rating to 5 stars. Or he can start a conversation with you. He can reply to your email address, and you can work out a process to take care of this issue. And the third feature that I want to talk about was developer as an advertiser. We already announced day before that now you can advertise your app within other apps on Store. And this feature is already available through Pub Center. But in a few months, we are going to bring this feature inside Dev Center, so you don't have to go out to Pub Center, create an account, do it there. What you do instead is you now first pick an app that you want to advertise, and you create an app campaign for it, an advertisement campaign for it. You will see all the images that you've uploaded for that app, so you can pick the one you want to show on the ad. You see a preview of what the ad will look like. And then you can set a monthly budget for this advertisement, up to $100, and pay for it. And once this ad campaign has been set up, you can go and see how this ad campaign has been performing over the past few days. You get to see how many people saw the ad, how many people clicked on the app, how much have you actually spent on this ad campaign since you launched it. So very, very powerful. No need to go to Pub Center anymore in a few months. So we started off looking at features that apply to both dev centers. Then we went into some details that were Windows Phone specific. And I have a few more things that are Windows specific that I want to talk about. The first thing is you will soon have the ability to schedule a promo pricing for your app. An example is Thanksgiving week coming up. You, in advance, can say, my start and end time for this promotion is this, and please make my app available for 99 cents instead of $4.99. You can do this in advance. The other one is we noticed one of the common reasons for certification failure was that applications that were accessing the internet were not providing a privacy policy because it's an optional field in Dev Center. So now we do some analysis of the app at the time of submission itself. And if we see that it's using network APIs, then we make it a mandatory field. So you can't even submit and get a failure report later on. And finally, you have the ability to indicate that an application requires touch. So we noticed that some of the applications, obviously, these apps go out to all Windows 8.1 PCs, irrespective of whether they have touch or not. But you may decide that I have built this app only for touch devices. And if you do that, then we don't show that app on the store live tile, on the spotlight within the store, or in the picks for you list. You can still see the app in top free, top paid, because we don't want to change that. A touch app is in the top free app, we still want to show it. But if a user on a non-touch device tries to download the app, we give them a warning saying, we have not detected your PC to be a touch-enabled PC. Do you still want to go ahead and download it? And the reason why we allow this is there are times when we can't detect it. Somebody has an external USB device that they plug in to get touch capabilities and so on. So we still give this warning, allow the user to download the app, but then we don't allow this user to rate or review your app because we don't want to pollute ratings from, let's say he didn't have a touch device. We don't want him to affect your reputation of the app. So that's it. The key takeaways, first thing is obviously we have one development platform now. We have this notion of universal applications. We're introducing the concept of app name reservation for Windows Phone, the same way as Windows. We are making a bunch of improvements to Windows Phone app submission, allowing you to do 8.1 submissions for Windows Phone apps. And we have accelerated the certification process and a few features, additional features across the 2 dev centers. So with that, I'll open up the stage. Oh, one more thing. Everything that you saw today is coming in 2 weeks, except for response to reviews and developer as advertiser. So with that, I'll ask you to ask me questions. There are a few related sessions. You can take a look at the recorded sessions later on. And the best question that according to me, will get this free headset. All right.
I have a question about localized app names.
Yeah.
So Silverlight 8.1 apps that upgraded from 8.0.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, we provided the native DLL basically with the localized names. So how it works now?
You still have to do it the same way, but the name that you use in the DLL has to be one of the reserved names on the app.
So basically reserving the localized names and then creating the native first.
Correct. So you saw me reserve one name. Mm-hmm. We allow you to reserve multiple names on the same app.
That's yep.
Yeah, so you would reserve a name for each app.
Okay.
By the way, do you guys want to come on stage for other questions, certification, etc.? All right.
So I have a few questions, made notes here this time. How long, once you reserve a name, how long is it valid for under your account? For example, I'll give you an example. Apple gives you 180, you could reserve a name, 180 days. If you don't submit an app or a binary by that time, it's released back out into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And
12 months.
12 months is what you're doing?
12 months, yes.
Okay. We have a few trademark names that people already have reserved, you know?
Yep.
So
we have a process in which you can reach out to us and say that this is infringing on your trademark name.
Okay.
And we will remove that from that app.
Okay. And if they already have an app published, you'll take down notice?
Yeah, they'll have to choose a new name and republish their app.
Got it. Okay. The other thing is it's replying to reviews. As soon as the customer is satisfied with the review, are they going to have to be? Or is there going to be an option for them to reply back to you as a developer?
No, they can go and change their rating at any time. So,
right, so
once they're satisfied, you should encourage them to can you please go and change your rating?
So that's what I was going to suggest is why don't you guys add a one-click link that says, were you satisfied with your answer? You have it on your other TechNet pages. Yep. Are you satisfied with your answer and would like to update your review?
Sounds like a good suggestion.
So that's a one-click back in that puts them right at the review page without much hassle. Because it's always a hassle to go find the app, go review it, and all that stuff.
Right. Great suggestion.
You know?
We'll keep that in mind.
So
to review, but not like a one-click saying, I want to make it a 5-star.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy. I want to review. Yes, I got to give this developer a good star.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Sorry if I have one more other thing. So when we signed up, WinQual was always asking us, every time we added a new user, Windows Phone Dev Center was usually, a long time ago, was under WinQual for some odd reason. But every time we added a new user, like my CFO would need to get access to reports, it would ask her to pay $99 as well. Is that still the case for every user, whether they're not developed? They just need reporting capabilities.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you can only have one Microsoft account linked to one Dev Center account today. It's a feature we've heard about quite often, and we'll.
Yeah, that's right. So to answer that question specifically, no, the additional user wouldn't have to pay $99 to get a new account because the only way you can access that data is by logging in with the same account.
Oh, but I would have to give her my dev ID.
Right.
That's correct. And so the feature that Abhijit is now talking about is an important feature that we should add. It's our role management feature where you can have a primary account with
Exactly. Right.
We don't have that yet, but we know and
She-
we've heard loud and clear.
Exactly. She ended up paying, but it was just a mess.
So the way it works now is even if she paid, she still wouldn't get access to that.
Exactly.
Right,
She
right.
didn't get access
Right.
to it.
Yeah. So yeah,
All right.
we've heard that. What's your name again?
Ishan.
Ishan. Okay, you're one of the top conductors for
Okay.
this. Okay. All right.
My company develops apps that are used by carriers.
Okay.
And what that means is that we end up submitting the app for beta status, but the carrier then ends up submitting the app for production.
Yep.
That often turns into a real circus. And I wondered if you had any suggestions for how we might make that process more smooth. Very often, the production version is under the gun, like they're about to make a phone public, and it has to have the new version or something of that nature.
So is this an app that typically goes out, the same app is pre-installed on multiple OEM devices?
Sometimes it's always pre-installed,
Got it. And is it customized for these OEMs, or it's the same binary, is just,
customized.
okay. So one of the things we can do, and this is what we actually recommend people to do, is you still submit the real app from your account, and we can, through our support team, mark it as an exclusive for that particular OEM. And you can download the pre-installed package and hand it to the OEM. I can walk you through the details. And I don't know everything no one needs to know about it, but that way you get to keep on updating the app. It's not like every time you have to tell them, please guys, go and update the app from your account. You still maintain the. Sure. So yeah, let me talk to you after the session. Yeah.
Hi. I have two questions. First is, I've written a lot of Windows drivers, but not Windows Phone apps, at least not yet, at least not submitted. You pointed out about the evaluation kit. In Win drivers, we used to have WHCK. Here you have that. Is there a way to run that locally?
That is a local test.
Oh, that is a.
I ran it locally.
So can I download that thing and run?
If you install Visual Studio, it should be part of Visual Studio itself.
Okay. Okay.
And it's called WAC for 8.1 packages.
Okay.
But if you're planning to do a pre-existing package, it's called Certification Store Cert Kit.
For 8.1, whether you're developing for Windows Store or Windows Phone Store, you are essentially using the same kit, Windows App Certification Kit,
Okay.
for all 8.1 packages. If you are planning to develop for existing 8.0 devices out there, phone devices,
Okay.
then you should be using the kit which shipped as part of the 8.0 SDK, which was called as Store Test Kit. In all these cases, we do make sure the developers, when they're developing, they do have a kit available for compliance checks. It does static analysis checks on
Okay,
your
yeah.
existing packages.
That's because that's
Yeah.
what some of the things on the driver side,
Right.
and that's what
But
I
That's
was
right.
there's one thing I do want to add. Because it's an offline test, there are a few things we can't check.
I understand.
Right? Like, do
Totally
you own this
understand.
app name or not?
Totally
But the beauty is you don't have to submit, and you don't need to be connected to the internet.
And the second question is, again, it might be because I've not developed a lot of phone apps, but let's assume there's an app and I want X number of people to try it out. Maybe it's something that requires online collaboration or something else. How can I do it before it really goes out to the world, actually?
Okay, so we have a way to, if you submit your app as hidden, then this app doesn't show up in the store if you search for it
Okay.
or if you browse lists. You have to give a deep link to the app
Okay.
to your reviewers. Now, if the link is shared out to other people, they'll be able to download the app. But this way, at least you can limit it to
There's a few set of
few
people.
set of folks, and then once you feel this is in a good shape,
Okay.
you can unhide the app, and suddenly it's available to
So
everyone.
that is, when you're submitting the package, the hidden thing is an option over the right over
Yes,
there.
this is one way of doing it. The other one is to submit the app as a beta app. If you are really worried about only these people should
Oh,
be able to
beta app.
download it.
Okay.
Because beta apps, it is also a hidden app, but you also have to specify the Microsoft accounts
Okay.
that have been ACLed to download the app.
Okay, so
But the disadvantage of beta apps is that you can't change a beta app into a normal app. So there are pros and cons for
what do you
both.
mean by, no, I didn't understand.
If you start an app as a beta app, you can't convert it into a non-beta app later on. It has to remain as a beta app. So typically, most developers
That
have
name you mean to say?
no, yeah, and yes, you don't. That's why I was saying, don't use the real name if it's an 8.1.
I see, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I just wanted to add that the feature that Abhijit just described about specifying a set of users for your beta app, that's a Windows Phone only feature right now. That doesn't exist for the Windows Store.
Okay.
That's something that
As long
also
as
we
it
need
can-
to change.
okay,
But
okay. So-
just to warn you on that.
So that link that you're talking about, I should be able to send out to whoever I want, they should be able to download it, basically.
Yes.
Okay, great.
One more thing, please do fill out the evaluations. There's the QR code. Yeah.
So the question is referring to just now the beta, right? I'd like to figure out, is that a way that when I create a beta and then I spend quite some time to invite a long list of the people helping me test, is that a way that whatever I fill in, they will automatically receive an email to invite them to download instead of I have to go back and manually manage who did I invite.
Right.
So then I would have to get the links,
Yep.
all this
Not
work
at the
here.
moment, but it's good feedback. We can consider adding that.
It's pretty serious.
Yep. How many beta users do you typically have for your app?
40 to 50,
Okay. We'll take that feedback back to the team.
or sometimes 100. No, a lot of the time is like, like I work for Nokia, so we help a lot of partners. When they have to invite like more people, so end up like I supposed to just help to post to the beta for people to try. End up like I spend a lot of the time to manage that.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have two questions. The first one is related also to the hidden and beta releases. So the question is, if I have done it as a hidden app, does it go through the testing process or?
Yes, it goes through everything. It's just that it won't appear using search or browse, but it's exactly like any other app.
But for the beta, it doesn't.
For beta, let Ashish talk about the behavior for certification.
So all submissions, regardless of whether they are hidden, published, or beta apps, they go through all of automated testing. The only caveat is there are some small percentage of applications which will be flagged for a pre-published manual review. That is essentially based on the machine learning risk analysis, which we talked about earlier in the session. But large majority of the submissions will simply end up in the catalog in a couple of hours anyway. The exception to this, this general rule is the beta applications. Beta applications never get flagged for manual review, but they still go through 100% automated testing all the time.
And I don't have a limit on the number of people that I share the beta release with.
That limit is
Up to 10,000 users.
Another thing, if I have flagged my application for a certain publishing date, does this speed up the testing somehow? Like, is it flagged on your side, like this app should be tested prior to others?
No, because on Windows Phone, you can't set a publish date, number one. And yeah, irrespective of, it'll still, there's no way to say expedite this particular submission.
But you mentioned something regarding that I'd like to say that my publishing date will be within this
That's
period.
only for Windows Dev Center. Does it affect the certification process?
It doesn't. That feature in Windows is typically used if you wanted to tie your release to some kind of a marketing launch. And so you might submit the app, but then your marketing launch isn't for another, let's say, 10 days. And you know that the app's going to get through certification, and normally it would be published maybe within 3 days. But you don't want it to be published. You don't want it in the store catalog until that 10th day. So if you just want your app to get into the store as quickly as possible, you wouldn't set the publishing date at all. It's only if you want it on a specific date and time.
And one final concern regarding the certification, the validation process for getting into the store. It is still related that I should have a credit card thing.
Can you repeat the question once?
I have to have a credit card in order to be validated to get to the store.
In the past, up until next week, you have had to have a credit card to kind of prove your identity.
Yes.
It's a process where we would bill something to your credit card, like a few cents, and then you had to enter that amount in. But we're removing that check.
Okay, so now I can just be validated through any other process. I'm just asking this question because I'm kind of a developer / Windows Phone evangelist, and I travel in African countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, and these countries actually, when you deal with developers or startup, it's not that common that they have a
Yep.
normal credit card.
Yeah,
So-
that's the reason why we are getting rid of that. So you have, if there is a promo code that you hand out for creating a new account, you won't need a credit card, or they can pay using PayPal.
Mhm, so I mean, for the validation things, you are offering other alternatives apart from
Yes.
the.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. What's your name? Dina?
My name is Dina. Yes.
Dina, okay.
Hi, we're building an app that requires a pre-existing membership,
Okay.
right, to set of services that we already have. As part of the certification, is it necessary for us to provide a name and password and some sample data for
Yeah,
you guys to log in?
typically we encourage you to do that because the manual certification team will need to, like if it's just a splash screen and you can't really see the app, you have to log in. Then you saw the notes to testers, so you can say, hey, here's a demo account, username, password, as you do the certification, log in using this. Do you want to add something to that, or?
Any test account is fine.
Yeah.
You don't really have to provide a ton of context, just provide the user ID and credentials. That's about it.
As long as we give you some data in behind that you can test with?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I think the main point here is they want the testers, if it actually gets flagged for manual review, want to see what is behind the curtain. Is it some benign functionality, or is there something potentially malicious? So.
Okay, thanks.
Hi. In the new 8.1 from Windows Phone APIs, there's support for Bluetooth LE now that's getting exposed. So on other platforms, we've got some devices that work with the app for certification, and especially like if we want to have people test out the app, do we have to send you guys devices as well to test against?
No, it's not required. Yeah.
So, but I mean, most of the functionality requires you to have physically pair with.
Yeah, we will not hold your application back because we don't have the pairing device with us.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thanks.
I'm just curious, on the other ecosystems, do you have to provide the devices?
On iOS, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They
Good to know that.
They have to, especially if it's a Bluetooth, so it's got to be certified and all that, you have to provide them with the device itself.
I think the fundamental point in certification, we are not a testing shop for developers in general. The way we see ourselves is making sure that the ecosystem is protected, the end users' interests are protected, and also the ISVs and developers at large are also getting minimal friction. So when you are talking about tethered devices, there the end user is explicitly making a decision to actually plug in something to their device.
Right.
And so that is very upfront and obvious to them.
Right.
So as long as somebody is making a conscious choice and then they can see the consequence of that in the application, I think that is something which is already ingrained into the platform with all the appropriate notifications popping up for the user to make the right choices.
Right.
So I think that is where we don't really feel the need to hold you back or add any friction to getting your application through in the catalog.
Great. That's awesome. Big headache to send devices in, so nice.
Can you say anything about what would cause an app to get flagged for manual review? What sorts of things?
Say that again?
What sorts of things would cause an app to get flagged for manual review?
I think we mentioned this yesterday. So we have a combination of automated tests, and there is a machine learning algorithm which generally looks at the application and ISV reputation over a period of time. Now, there are a bunch of factors which constitute app and ISV reputation, so we'll not divulge the exact recipe here. But generally, if you're doing the right things, if you're using Windows App Certification Kit or Store Test Kit to make sure that you're technically compliant and your content is generally safe for all the users, and if you're trying to access personally identifiable information, something like contacts or text messages or photos from end user devices, you have appropriate policies which provide that information upfront and in a transparent way to the end users. I think those are the kind of things which we want to make sure are happening for our end users. As long as you're doing all those right things, you don't really have to worry about certification coming in your way. But if you happen to, so there are some things which we classify as egregious violations, And if somebody clearly shows malicious intent by violating any of those really strong policies, then we will basically, that goes into your history, and that carries forward with you over a period of time. But generally, if you are a good citizen, you don't really have to worry about us getting in your way.
All right, so what's the time here? Any more questions? We'll be here for a few minutes. But thank you all, and I hope this was helpful. Yes, I am. Yeah. All right. So, okay, who do you think we should give it to?
Well, go based on volume.
Oh, all right. All right, Ishan. Here you go. Thanks.